your Job Wrestling Hour with your host, the ConKaiserdor and old school Avis Hathaway. Pin me, pay me, do your job. Pin me, pay me, do your job. Pin me, pay me, do your job. Pin me, pay me, do your job.
Welcome. This is the Do Your Job Wrestling Hour right here on Blog Talk Radio. I'm the ConKaiserdor. Alongside me, old school Avis Hathaway. We have a great show for everybody this Sunday afternoon. In just a little bit, we will be joined by the original ECW icon, the quintessential stud muffin, Joel Gertner. He'll be on the show, so it's going to be great. We thank you so much for tuning in this afternoon as we are live at 3 o'clock today. Usually our go time is 9 p.m., but we're doing a special 3 o'clock show this afternoon here as we have the Survivor Series pay-per-view tonight, which we will get into in just a little bit here. Old school Avis Hathaway. Bud, what's going on there tonight? Or today, it's afternoon.
I was going to say, it's today afternoon. Little early start time, change things up. Hopefully everybody got the memo that we'd be starting early today, not only for the Survivor Series, but also to accommodate Joel Gertner, who I believe will be attending the Survivor Series. Should be a great show. I'm very excited to speak to Joel Gertner and run down the Survivor Series card.
Absolutely. It should be a great show this afternoon. And without further ado, Bud, we have a pretty solid Survivor Series card this evening, and it is taking place from the historic Madison Square Garden, home of the greatest hockey team in the world, the New York Rangers, and it should be a good pay-per-view.
I agree with everything you said except for the New York Rangers bit, but that's another story for another day. It's a solid card. I'm a little disappointed that they only have one traditional Survivor Series match. That's always been my favorite part of the Survivor Series card. When I was younger, that was one of my favorite. It was one of my favorite pay-per-views, and it was more because of the Survivor Series matches. So I'm a little disappointed about that. But beyond that, it does seem like it's a pretty good card.
It does. It does seem like a pretty good card, and I'd like to go ahead and take a moment to kind of run down. Now, this is, just in case you were wondering, this is the 25th annual Survivor Series. That's amazing that they've had this many Survivor Series.
Yeah, it is, and there was talk maybe a year or two ago that they were going to do away with the Survivor Series, rebrand it. I'm glad they didn't, because I like the four kind of cornerstones or pillar pay-per-views that they have in Mania, SummerSlam, Survivor Series, and the Rumble. I like them having those four as kind of their premier shows. So it would have been a little bit bummed if they got rid of it and replaced it with another kind of also-ran show. But, yeah, 25 years that it's been around. I mean, that's a long time.
Yeah, it really is, and it's nice that they're doing the pay-per-view, at Madison Square Garden in New York City, so it should be pretty cool to be in attendance there tonight. And, let's kind of run down some of the matches. Of course, the match that they've really been pushing the most, there's the headlining main event, is The Rock and John Cena versus The Miz and R-Truth. How do you see that match going?
I think there's a couple different ways they could go with this match. I'd be surprised if one way or another John Cena and The Rock don't go over. I don't think it'll be a smooth tag team. There's been some talk of maybe this is where John Cena will turn heel. Turning him heel against The Rock would build some interest in the match, maybe freshen John Cena's character up a little bit. That said, I really don't see it happening. I don't see the WWE turning him heel anytime soon, especially with how over he is with the kids and how big his merchandise sales are. So I don't think that will happen. That said, I don't think it'll be a very smooth team for him and The Rock. I think they'll kind of outdo each other, try to one-up each other. I think, honestly, they probably should put R-Truth and The Miz over. I think it would do more for them to win that match and build more anticipation for The Rock versus John Cena. But I see somehow, some way, probably The Rock hitting a rock bottom on both of them, getting the cover, and, that being that for the match.
I agree with you for the most part. I don't think they're going to turn Cena heel, though, but I do think The Rock and Cena will go over.
Yeah, and I don't think they should personally, but, hey.
It's the beauty of not knowing what's going to happen. So moving into the championship match for the WWE title, we have Alberto Del Rio versus the cult of personality himself, CM Punk. Now, that should be a pretty good match, although I don't know if I think Del Rio is going to retain the title here.
Yeah, I definitely think Del Rio retains. I think they'll put on a good match. Del Rio's a good enough worker in the ring. CM Punk's great. He's great on the mic. But I think they're going to try to keep this feud going for a while. I don't think this is one that they're going to try to squash anytime soon. And I see by less than honorable means Del Rio retaining. Maybe Ricardo Rodriguez gets involved, or there's some sort of swerve. But I don't see CM Punk taking the belt just yet.
Yeah, I agree with you. And then our next title match is for the World Heavyweight title. We have Mark Henry versus The Big Show.
This is actually an interesting match to me because Mark Henry has been kind of toiling on the upper mid-card for, the past 10 years. And his most recent push has really been something different, and I've really actually enjoyed it because they've gone away from, the comedy Mark Henry, and they've gone away from the happy, smiley, friendly Mark Henry, who I actually also kind of like too, to using his size and his just demeanor to an advantage, and just using him as a monster. And he's getting over that way. He's just destroying people, hurting people left and right. That said, I think the Big Show actually wins the title. I don't think their program will be over. I think it'll keep going, but I think Big Show picks up the title.
I think I'm going to go with the Big Show on that. I think that at Survivor Series there needs to be at least one big title change. I think that'll be the title that will change hands, and Big Show will retain, and they'll continue to, carry on that storyline of those two guys going at it. And then you have the only traditional Survivor Series match, which on the surface it sounds a little cheesy, only because, it seems like you already kind of know who's going to win this match. But Team Orton, Randy Orton, Sheamus, Mason Ryan, Kofi Kingston, and Sin Cara versus Team Barrett, Wade Barrett, Cody Rhodes, Jack Swagger, Hunigo, and Dolph Ziggler. How do you see that one going?
Well, this match on the surface, it kind of seems thrown together, and it is. That said, I think it's safe to say Team Orton will go over, with Orton pretty much running the team and doing most of the eliminations, getting most of the people out. The only caveat to that is if the WWE really wants to invest in Wade Barrett, I could see Barrett's team going over with Wade Barrett and Randy Orton finishing the match, and somehow, some way, Barrett pulling out the victory. Because I think that would actually do a lot for Barrett, and I think you could see that, but I don't think you will.
Yeah, and also, if you're kind of leading into the next match, it's a little odd because, they have so many guys on the roster and stuff, both for Raw and SmackDown, that Dolph Ziggler will be returning again later on in the championship match for the U.S. title against John Morrison.
Again, there's two things there. Dolph Ziggler, this is the second time in the last few pay-per-views he's pulled double duty. I guess they're pretty high on him to allow him to do that. I don't think John Morrison goes over because I think they're trying to start a program with Mason Ryan and Dolph Ziggler, and I think they'll kind of use the U.S. belt as a little bit of a prop for that. So I don't see Morrison going over. But Morrison's contract is coming to an end, and maybe they're trying to sweeten the pot to get him to return and say, hey, we'll put the U.S. belt on you if you stick around, because they have kind of buried him as of late. So I guess you could see that, but my pick is Dolph Ziggler, who goes on to a program with Mason Ryan.
I concur. I think Dolph Ziggler will win that match as well. And we have the WWE Divas Championship match, a lumberjill match, kind of get all the divas on the show. Beth Phoenix, the champion, versus Eve Torres.
This little feud between Natalya and Beth Phoenix and Eve and Kelly has just kind of gone around in circles so much that it's hard to really even care about this match. And it's taking nothing away from the performers involved. It's just been bad booking, I think. I think Eve wins because I could see Eve turning heel or Kelly turning heel and kind of battling each other. But it really wouldn't surprise me either way.
Yeah, I think they're running a little low on big name event diva heels. Like they've got Beth and they've got Natalya. And then you have the Bellas, but they're not really that good in the ring. And then that's pretty much it. Alicia Fox was one of their bigger heels, but they don't really have anyone else.
Well, Alicia Fox all of a sudden is a face with no rhyme or reason. She just has been coming out with the faces lately. So she turned face, and it's just like, okay, there was really no build to that. The Bellas really haven't even been in the ring ever since their little title run, and they're back to just kind of being the chicks in the background that flirt with the celebrities. They really don't have any heels, and I think either Kelly or Eve will turn heel because I think they're going to go into a program with each other. It's kind of the groundwork's kind of been laid for it. Which one of them, I don't know. I initially thought Eve would, but they've kind of been laying a little bit more groundwork for Kelly, too, so who knows. That said, like I said, I think Eve wins the belt, but it could go either way.
Yeah, I'm going with Beth Phoenix on this one. I got to say, I think Beth Phoenix will go over. I don't think Eve wins the title tonight.
One thing about Survivor Series I wanted to ask you, do you think that one Zack Ryder will make an appearance?
Oh, of course, absolutely. I think Zack Ryder will be somehow on the show in some capacity, and certainly, especially in, New York City, him being the Long Island Ice-Z, I can't foresee him not being on the show, to some degree.
I don't know. Last time they were in Long Island, he wasn't even on the show, so you never know. Have you signed his petition yet?
I have not signed the petition for his title match. I have not. I have read though that John Laurinaitis did he did decline that there. So, but hey, we got bigger and better things, guy. We have Joel Gertner, the sexual intellectual, coming on the show. So don't go anywhere. When we come back, folks, we will be live on the Dear Job Wrestling Hour with the quintessential stud muffin, Joel Gertner.
And wow! It is I, the quintessential stud muffin, Joel. This girl I know wanted to see the show live here in Connecticut. So I told her to bend over and I'd show her where I'd stick it. For 45 minutes, she proceeded to tease and please and lick it. But when all was said and done, I made her buy a ticket.
Welcome back to the Do Your Job Wrestling Hour, live here on Blog Talk Radio. We are joined this afternoon by a true ECW icon, the quintessential stud muffin, Joel Gertner. What's going on there today, Joel?
Well. Thank you for the introduction. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. It's great to have you on the show. As our fans know, we have a special time today, airing at 3 o'clock here from 3 to 4. So great to have you on. I know that you will be going tonight to the Survivor Series at the Garden. Should be an awesome show tonight.
Going to check it out. I have some buddies that are going and some a bunch of people that are going to the show, and decided somewhat last minute that I'd do that, so I appreciate you squeezing me in at the earlier time. But, we'll see. Maybe I'll catch up with some folks, and at the very least, it looks like it's going to be a really, really solid show. So it's got that going for it. But I'm really thrilled to go see the show today and in my hometown, so it's going to be a blast.
Last time we all saw you on TV, you were working with TNA doing the Hardcore Justice pay-per-view. What else has been up since you have done that?
Since then, I kind of just doing, a little bit of whatever comes along. I was out in Chicago in the first part of the year, I want to say in February, working with some real great guys, the Barron brothers, Jacques and Gabe, and they were bringing me out they were doing conventions at the time. They've got a movie poster business that they run, and they brought me out, had me... I did a convention with them actually around this time last year in the city, across the street from the Garden at the Hotel Pennsylvania. So I did that with them in November, and then they brought me out a few months later, this past February, to Chicago to an indie show out there. It was an AAW show, and basically just, was going to be working with them pretty regularly, but they had some things kind of go on and shift as far as their involvement in the wrestling business, which is to say that it really, really grew and prospered and flourished, and they're now working with, they are Resistance Pro, basically, which debuts on Friday next week in Chicago at the Excalibur downtown, right on the north side, I think. I think it's across the street from the Hard Rock. It's right down there. It's a few blocks from Geno's East. And, that's going to be a really big show, and they're adding people all the time. I know they just added Lisa Marie Veron. She who plays Tara in TNA and formerly Victoria in WWE. So she's going to be there, and Harry Smith, and just a bunch of people you know, and some people you might not know, and some people maybe if you're not from Chicago you don't know them, but really just a star-studded lineup. I know Raven has worked with them in the past and is going to be working with them. I think primarily as an agent, and I'm going to be on the show as well, obviously, and yeah, it's going to be great. Teddy Hart going to be on the show, a bunch of people. So it should be fun.
Awesome. Now, a question that I had there for you is, you are working the show. In what capacity you'll be able to see your character?
I believe I'm announcing the show, doing color. Certainly I'll be in the ring. I hope, I don't want to say certainly, but as I understand it, maybe. Hopefully I'll be in the ring and be able to, do my introduction. And, aside from that, I know, at least for downline, the plan would be for me to be their color guy as I was in ECW. And, yeah, that's going to be basically what I do. So it should be a little bit of a blast from the past, but also, I'm constantly always making sure that I reinvent myself at least a little bit so that, maybe not at the expense of what people have grown to know and love, but at the same time, you got to keep fresh and you got to make sure that it's always a little bit new.
Now, Joe, going back a little bit, my partner talked about you were on the TNA Hardcore Justice pay-per-view. Everybody knows you from ECW. You're one of the guys that everybody remembers from the old ECW. You also worked the WWE One Night Stand, and if I'm not mistaken, Shane Douglas's Hardcore Homecoming show. Which of those did you kind of feel was the most accurate or best tribute to the original ECW?
There was a fourth one, too. I worked the Francine version of an ECW reunion, also at the arena. So there were actually, I guess, 4 different reunion shows that I did. And, they were all different, but they were all special. They were all, I thought, authentic, and I think they replicated well a lot of the energy and atmosphere, especially the ones at the arena. The one that WWE did, could never be an exact duplication of ECW. It has to, the production qualities have to be up to WE snuff, and it's just, But yeah, no, it was I thought the WWE show was great considering it was, their spin on ECW. I thought they really integrated, their stuff with our stuff to the point where it made some sense, and I thought the fans really enjoyed it as well. But, anytime the show ends and it says, copyright 2005 World Wrestling Entertainment, it's not an ECW show per se, you know what I mean? Like same with the TNA, I guess. But it was as close. I mean, I don't think they, it's not like they brought us out there to demean us or to bury it or, to, anything like that. So I thought I enjoyed all 4 shows. Like I said, they were all different, but they were all a whole lot of fun.
Now, did you, after the WWE or the TNA one, did you have any discussions with moving to a little bit more permanent of a gig, especially WWE? They had their ECW version, I guess you would call it, even though it was nothing really like ECW. Did you have any discussions with maybe moving forward into a little bit more of a permanent role there?
I wouldn't say discussions, no. Certainly that's the kind of thing that I, would have at the time, and obviously I'm always interested in because, I feel like the wrestling business is kind of where I belong, and it's what I enjoy doing, I think, more than anything I've ever done, in my professional career. So obviously, to do that full-time and long-term was always and is always the goal. As far as were there any discussions after the fact, there was some maybe preliminary talk about how maybe the WWE one could have led to, something, more lasting. And I guess maybe a decision was made that wouldn't happen. And as for TNA, I don't know that there were even really, I wouldn't call it discussions, but, it was certainly, I was hopeful that maybe something would come from that and, made it known that, if they wanted me for TV the next day, I was available, that kind of thing. But, again, the goal is to, find a group that's out there that feels that they can utilize me to the best of everyone's ability and, to make it work and to have something that lasts and to be able to be out there and perform and do what I love and, hopefully, have some people enjoy it.
Well, see, that kind of leads me into my next question because, back in ECW, you were known as, at least in my opinion, I think a lot of people's opinion, one of the, some of the best mic skills, had some of the best promos really anybody's ever seen. They were always funny. They were always very well done, not stumbled upon. Did you write your own promos and the little quips and stuff, or was that something that was kind of done for you?
I did. I wrote them all, the intro lines and the rhymes and everything between It Is I and then finally when I say Gertner. By and large, I wrote, I want to say, like 98% of it. Some of it was inspired by, maybe a joke that I might have heard during the week or, maybe something inside, that was, the talk of the locker room or whatever. Like, sometimes definitely, there were different levels of inspiration and different, sometimes it was 100% my own creative, element, and sometimes it was, closer to maybe, a little bit less than that. But I did write them all, put a lot of time into them, and always, wanted to make sure that I had a different one every night, not even just every weekend, but really every night, because, even if you're doing a triple shot in Louisiana or a 4-shot in Louisiana, and you're doing 4 different towns, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, the ECW fans were so rabid, they so voraciously wanted to see the product that, it wouldn't surprise me if a lot of folks figured, it's all in the same state, why not go to all 4 shows? And I wanted to make sure that if they were going to go to all 4 shows, that they were going to, hear 4 different introductions. So I would change it up every night.
Now, you've written so many different ones. You've had so many ones done in certain different cities and such. Is there one or two that really stand out in your mind as being some of your all-time favorites?
Some of them do. I mean, that's kind of like picking between children, you know what I mean? But some of them do, though. I don't know, like the ones that I guess you played the ones Connecticut, and I made her buy a ticket at the end, which was that's one. And I guess the one with whether they're at home or here in Dayton, they're watching me and masturbating. There was the one, I think, California one that I did, I think for the LA pay-per-view. How graphic can we get? I mean, what can we say and what can't we say on
you have free reign. You have free reign.
Free reign. So yeah, so the one where I talked about, they always, sometimes they think they're dreaming, and I always leave them screaming because I'm a pussy-licking demon with vanilla-flavored semen. That one comes to mind quite often. But yeah,
that's a good one.
Yeah, I just tried to keep it fresh and tried to keep it fresh.
That's awesome. What was it like working so closely with Devon and Bubba Ray? Certainly, you were there, in their early beginnings as a tag team in ECW, and now what they've become, certainly one of the greatest tag teams in the history of wrestling. What was it like working with them?
It was cool. It was interesting. They were in ring. They were the ring generals, and I was, just the mouthpiece. So, we all did, our part of what had to be done to get the act over. And, not to say that there weren't times that I wasn't in there taking a finisher or taking a chair shot, and there were times as well that Bubba would be on the mic and he would, contribute to the riot as well. So we kind of, intermingled and hybridized it where, everybody was doing a little bit of everything, especially, it was a long run, I guess. I don't know if it was 2.5 years or however long it was, but it was the better part of that. And it was great working with them. They were I think we all entered the business in the same year. Like, we've all been doing it 20 years. I think we all started in 91. And we're all about the same age, mid to late 30s. So it was cool because, again, they were in the ring, and I was kind of, outside the ring doing the whole cheerleader and introduction and promo kind of thing. But, it was great. I mean, I think what was so important was the fact that we were being told constantly that, like, even though business was great in the mid to late 90s for WWF and for WCW, we were always told that sometimes, even though things were going well, and even for a lot of the folks that it was going the most well for, at least the word that reached our locker room was that sometimes morale wasn't good, and that's unfortunate. But what was fortunate is that our morale was great. Even when things were, even when there was a lot of, tension or anxiety, based on the fact that, okay, we've got this big TV deal, are we going to get it, are we not going to get it, who's it going to be with, what's it going to affect. You know, I mean, ECW, you know, like everything in the wrestling business, especially on television, was in a constant weekly state of flux. But we had so much fun, and everybody got along so well and was so into contributing to the group effort that, you know, that there were never any real problems. So it was, you know, you were getting paid to do something that, you know, had you won the lottery and been able to quit your regular job, this is what you would do. You know what I mean? So here you're doing it, and you're also getting paid to do it. So it was, I mean, there's no, you know, it was, and especially for me, because I was, you know, it made such an impact on my life because I was so young. You know, I think for most of the time that I was there, I think maybe until Roadkill started in like 98 or so when he came in, maybe 97, I'm not sure. But for the first couple of years that I was there, I was the youngest guy on the roster because I started, I want to say, 3 days after my 20th birthday. So my whole run there was between 20 and 25. And I think that contributed to the fact that, you know, being on the road and traveling and performing and stuff like that at such a young age when some of my other friends were still in college or still in law school, it made quite an impact.
Yeah, let me ask you this, because you did get into the business, and especially with ECW so young. You know, what was your entry point into that company?
I went to a show in Philly at the Arena and was hanging out after the show. I think I was back at the hotel, and Paul Heyman was in the lobby, and I think he was going into an elevator, and I was too. I think I might have actually asked for the job in the elevator, to be honest, and I told him, I said, you have a show coming up in Middletown, New York, and I'm a ring announcer, and, you know, I've been working for such and such, and what's his name, and I've been doing it for 4 years now, and we have a mutual friend so-and-so, and, you know, I just wanted to let you know that I know that your ring announcers and your timekeepers, by and large, they're from the Philly area. So I'm not sure if they're going to make the trip for the Middletown show or if you'd otherwise be stuck looking for somebody. But if you want to avoid that, you know, I go to Cornell. It's further upstate, but I'd be more than happy to head down to Middletown. And if, you know, if you'd like to see what I might be able to do, then, you know, I'd really appreciate the opportunity. And he looked at me and he was like, you want it? I was like, yeah, I'd really appreciate it. He was like, you got it. Be there by 6. And
wow.
That's how it happened.
That's crazy. So he didn't ask to hear anything from your prior work or any samples. He pretty much just gave you the opportunity right then and there?
Yep, pretty much.
That's pretty amazing, and it's history ever since then, huh?
That's it.
That's it. So, you know, kind of, you know, getting into more recent stuff now, I know you are a promoter for MXW Wrestling. I haven't seen any recent shows from MXW. Are you still doing work with that promotion, or what seems to be the current state of it?
I think it's been, I want to say, a year and a half since the last show. It was last May. And over the years, since 2004, I think we've done 10 shows, 9 or 10 shows. And MXW is a true labor of love. Promoting indie wrestling is very hard, and succeeding at promoting indie wrestling is not easy, and it takes a whole lot of effort. And it's just, you know, for right now at least, I have, you know, something that I do, I guess, pretty much full time during the week, and I try to keep myself busy. And MXW, or again, promoting any kind of indie wrestling, is going to be the kind of thing that you want to be able to do, you know, 75 or 80 hours a week. And I wasn't able to I put a whole lot of time into it a year and a half ago for the New Haven show, but wasn't putting 80 hours a week into it. And, you know, funding, you know, it was completely self-funded, as MXW has been from the beginning. And, you know, it's great. It's a lot of fun. I hope it's something that I can eventually do full-time. Anybody who follows me on Twitter might know that my Twitter handle is MXW Wrestling, and my Facebook is MXW Joel Gertner. So it means a lot to me, and even when it's, you know, a little bit inactive or on hiatus, you know, I still always keep it in mind. the shows that we did were, right up there with, I want to say some of the best stuff on some of our shows is right up there with what you'd see ROH, Dragon Gate, Pro Wrestling Guerrilla. I mean, just really some top-notch independent stuff. We've had lots of guys who were on our 2004 and 2006 shows go on to be, in ROH as well as in TNA and in WWE. So, it's really good stuff, and we're looking right now at distributing some of the shows from the very beginning up until now, all of the shows really, and finding a way to get that out to the public because, people will ask me on my Twitter, hey, I was at such and such show, I'd like to have a copy of it, is it available? And there are some hard copies of DVDs that I, if I'm making an appearance, I'll bring them with me. But and I'll sell them along with my 8x10s and everything else. But as far as online, they're not available right now, and they pretty soon will be. As far as future shows, it's tough. We have people are asking me when's your next show? I'd like to try out. I'd like to be on the show, and I'd love to give people that kind of opportunity. But there's nothing on the docket right now. But I think the website's still up, and anybody who would like to follow me at either the Twitter or the Facebook, will certainly be able to get first dibs on any MXW information.
That's awesome, yeah. And certainly, just looking at some of the roster in the past, you've had a lot of guys, like you said, who've worked with ECW, a lot of indie guys. I know, some guys have even had some tryout matches with the WWE and such, and pretty big names on the indie scene. How much assistance were you getting, maybe financially or maybe even just kind of behind the scenes from some of your former ECW colleagues?
Assistance financially, no, nothing. Just the MXW stuff was all self-funded. Yeah, a lot of the ECW colleagues that I'd worked with in the past and that I would bring in for MXW shows, would, and I appreciate this more than, anybody might know, and perhaps more than they might know because, sometimes I'm so busy at the show running around that I, don't have time to say thank you as much as I'd like, but I think they're all well aware that, when they would come in and work for, a rate that was reasonable, and letting me know that, I was getting that rate because, I was a friend of theirs. It's not what they generally charge. Obviously that means a lot because here's somebody who's not only taking time out of their day, but they're also, in the ring, physically exerting themselves, putting themselves at risk, putting their body on the line. And, so any time that they can be, in that respect, in that sense, yeah, people did, help pitch in and make it a contributory effort as far as, pouring in their blood, sweat, and tears. And perhaps not getting, what they might have gotten if they were across town working for somebody else. So I appreciate that always.
Yeah.
But yeah, MXW was, completely, self-funded, and I we'll see. We'll see what happens with MXW. It's, like everything else, it's a work in progress.
You mentioned you're working that Chicago show. Is there any other things you have upcoming that you want to plug on the show as well?
I'm trying to, I guess the two that come to mind first, in addition to the Chicago show, would be I was recently, within the last week, added as a host for a stand-up comedy event in Philadelphia. I believe it's for Tom Robinson's birthday. He's a huge wrestling fan going back forever, huge hardcore fan, and an original Observer reader, and everybody in Philly. Perhaps being in Baltimore, you might know Tom Robinson or have heard of him, but
yeah.
He's doing a big birthday bash in the form of a stand-up comedy show, and yeah, I'm going to be hosting that. That's going to be, I want to say, Thursday night, December 1st, and then I've got something coming up in early 2012. I think they're still working on finalizing the date, so I don't know exactly what month right now, but perhaps in the first quarter of 2012. I've got a show coming up in Toronto, so I'll be sure to keep in touch. And again, if anybody is on the Twitter or on the Facebook account, they'll be able to get first wind of that. But yes, I've got Toronto coming up, I think in the first quarter of 2012. And then the Chicago thing seems like it's going to be a regular thing. So I'm expecting to be out there hopefully, certainly maybe every 4 to 8 weeks, depending on how regular they want to go. But I know that, this isn't something that they're promoting kind of as a one-off event, and they don't expect to be back. They're, certainly expecting to be back. So I'll be in Chicago at the very least, it seems, rather frequently, which is fun because that's a great town.
Definitely have you on Twitter, so anytime we see you post something, we'll always retweet it to our fans as well. I know that one last question I want to ask you. You mentioned that you worked for AAW, indie promotion. You did do some work with Dustin Diamond from Saved by the Bell, Screech fame.
Yeah.
And and I wanted to ask you a little bit about that, and also another question on top of that is I know he kind of did that transition from TV character to comedy, and I was wondering if you've ever considered doing that as well, considering you have this brand of your own little niche of the it's well and all that stuff there. I know that would make for some funny comedy as well. Can you share a little bit about that experience with Dustin and maybe future comedy for yourself?
The experience with Dustin was great. It was a lot of fun. I think I've seen it on YouTube. I know, within a few weeks after it happened, it was up on YouTube, so it may still be. So anybody who wants to kind of seek it out, hopefully you'll find it. But, yeah, it was great. It was fun. He's a pro and loves wrestling, and it was just a blast. And as far as, me, I had a very, very brief stint doing stand-up. I did, 1 or 2 sets 10 years or so ago. And then kind of put it on the back burner, and then really, didn't want to pursue it because that's another thing that you've got to really, apply yourself, and you've really got to put everything towards it, and financially and emotionally, and the time aspect. I mean, you really have to just be focused on the comedy, and I wasn't at the time, but I always said, maybe this is something that I could, pursue and consider a little bit more one day in the future. And I don't know, maybe that day has come because I find lately, since I, have been in discussions with them about the gig in Philadelphia on the 1st, I've been thinking more about, since I write my own material anyway, and, since that's really comedy, if you can be the one that delivers it, optimally, and you can be the one who's writing it too. If you can be your own writer, then, I guess, you can probably be relatively successful. So yeah, I'm going to host the show on December 1st, which is, let's say there are 7 or 8 comics that go up. It's pretty much, I do the interstitial stuff and kind of a minute here, 2 minutes there in between comics, introducing them, or sometimes just, doing some bits myself or whatever, just kind of, but, and that, if that turns into down the line me writing my own sets and taking my own bookings and actually, doing stand-up as an act, then yeah, I think that would be fun. It's certainly something that I haven't ruled out.
Now, when you do that show and you are the host, will you be introduced as the quintessential stud muffin, the lyrical miracle, or the sexual intellectual?
I don't know, maybe all 3. It might be up to me to introduce myself. I don't know, we'll see. But, yeah, hopefully we'll be able to get all of that in, because I think it's going to be, it'll be fun because it's going to be a wrestling crowd. It's going to be kind of, as private a party as a public performance can be. It's obviously open to the public, but a lot of the people who are going to be there and supporting the event are going to be Tom's friends. From within the Philadelphia stand-up comedy world, and also from the Philadelphia pro wrestling world. So it should be pretty fun.
That's awesome. That is great. Now, last question we want to ask is from really not from us specifically, but from one of our longtime listeners in our chat room, Y2 Jibber Jabber. He wants to know if you can share a rib story, one of your maybe a classic rib story, one you can share on the air from your experience in the business.
There was one time I was looking for my shoes for a while. There was one time where ironically, I had a new cell phone, and I was there in the back during the show, enjoying all of the features of my new cell phone, and to anybody who would ask, oh, is that a new cell phone? I would proudly say, yeah, that's a new cell phone. And then after the show, I'd be looking for my cell phone for a little while. But just, just harmless stuff like that. But as far as a rib story, there was some comedy to be had, and there were some ribs. There was just, one time we were at Denny's, and, I had some sausages on my plate. It's 5 in the morning, and we just left the show, and this is, dinner, and we're getting ready to just eat and go back to the hotel. And I get these sausages, and they look like they're raw. They look like they were just taken out of the box and thrown on the plate, and they haven't been cooked at all. And I remember this because, sign guy, Lou D'Angeli, he loves this sort of, he loves this line. I asked the waitress, I was like, what's the story with these sausages? And she's like, I don't know, why? I mean, they've been cooked. I was like, with a hairdryer? But just stuff like that, we used to just have a lot of fun. There was another, I'll give you another one in a restaurant. I ask, the waitress comes over, I'm like, do you have Mr. Pibb? And in a lot of parts of the country, they don't. So I said, do you have Mr. Pibb? She's like, no. I was like, and I knew what they had because I'd already read the beverages section of the menu. So I was like, do you have Sunkiss? No. Do you have Welch's grape soda? No. I go through about 11 different soft drinks. No, 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 no. I finally say, do you guys have Lipton iced tea? And you could hear in her voice, she's like, yes. I was like, great, I'll have water.
Well, that's a good one.
So there was stuff like that. There was fun like that to be had on the road.
Oh, that's great. That is really, really funny. I may have to try that sometime. That's good. Kind of nearing the end of the show, and certainly, we do want to, of course, plug one more time, mxwwrestling.net, and certainly check that out, as well as, you could follow the quintessential stud muffin Joel Gertner on Twitter at MXW Wrestling, which is his handle on Twitter. And like you said, you can keep tabs on the upcoming shows, as well as the upcoming show in Chicago as well. So if you're so many people following from different areas, so you never know who's on there and who's in what location sometimes. So you always got to just put it out there.
Yeah, I welcome everybody to hit me up on the Twitter. I'm always throwing little bits of stand-up comedy throughout the course of the day on there. And of course wrestling stuff, and some about anything, sports, politics. I'm a libertarian, so depending on whether you're an optimist or you're a pessimist, my being a libertarian means I'm always in accordance with you, or I'm always pissing you off. But so I've got a bunch of libertarian leanings every once in a while on the Twitter, but I try to keep it lighthearted, and I try to just keep everything fun, and for anybody that's got an open mind and is not easily offended, it's a pretty fun Twitter to follow.
Yeah, absolutely. I've just been following you as well and reading some of your tweets, and certainly pretty amusing. But I'd expect nothing less, man. So before we end the show tonight, would you mind doing a drop for the show for us to play on future shows?
Yeah, I can. Let's see. Well. It is I, the lyrical miracle, the sexual intellectual, and the quintessential stud muffin, Joel. I once was with this girl. She really knew how to slob the knob. So I asked her to get on her knees, and she continued to do her job. Gertner, and you're listening to Do Your Job Radio. So do that, J.O.B, and keep listening and have yourself an eargasm.
Awesome, man. We thank you so much for coming on tonight. That was one hell of a drop there. And, thanks so much for taking the time. I know, we had to kind of work things out, but I'm glad things worked out for the best. Again, thanks for taking the time to come on the show, and we'd love to have you on again in the future. And certainly have fun at the show tonight, and it should be an awesome show. And good luck in Chicago, man. Hope that gig continues to work out for you.
Thank you, my friend, for everything. Enjoy the rest of the weekend.
All right, that was the quintessential stud muffin, Joel Gertner, right here live on the Dear Job Wrestling Hour. And old school Avis Hathaway, Bud, I have to say that was probably the best drop, and not just for our show, but I think in drop history.
That one has got to be one of the best drops I've ever heard. That was hilarious.
Joel hosting that gig in Philly, hopefully, I know it's very time-consuming and stuff, but I really believe, if he did cross over and more and did some more comedy, he's a really funny guy.
Yeah, the thing is with stand-up comedy, it's you really got to cut your teeth, make your bones, do a lot of local shows for very little pay. But I think he's the kind of guy that could definitely be very successful at it.
Oh yeah, and seriously, the rib story alone about the sodas. I am going to test that out. I want to see how that works. That was really, really, really funny. So, great to have Joel Gertner on the show, and truly, an icon of the original ECW. I really can't think back, and I'm sure you the same, old school. You can't think back on watching ECW, and I've been to, so many of their events at the War Memorial in Fort Lauderdale, and, he was just one of those personalities who you really looked forward to hearing on the mic because he was just so funny, and he was great, He's truly an ECW original.
He was, and he was a highlight for a lot of people that, to me, an ECW show wasn't complete without Joel Gertner coming out, and, that's why, I was very happy with One Night Stand and Shane Douglas's and that sort of thing, because hearing him do his shtick, it never ceased to make me laugh.
Exactly, and that's something that, it's hard to come by, there's a lot of people who may have been really good at one point in time at cutting promos or doing XYZ, but no matter what he's doing, whether it's for TNA or WWE, if he's doing his thing, man, there's no one better than Joel Gertner, and certainly it's a little disappointing to. Because I feel like he could have been a really good mouthpiece in the WWE, especially maybe like a manager of some sort. But that's
the thing with that is, and I was going to say is, I think if it were more during the Attitude Era, he would have done very well. Because his stuff is not always the most PG rated. I'm sure he probably could make it that way, but. I think in the current climate of WWE, it was a little harder for him. But, even still, I think TNA is crazy to not take a look at him because, the guy can talk, and he's a great talker, and you could put him with anybody you're trying to get over. Really anybody that's not a great talker, and he's gonna fucking steal the show. So, I'm a little surprised TNA didn't take a longer look at him. WWE, I can kind of understand because they've been going towards the PG for a while now.
Sure.
And, you don't really associate Joel Gertner with PG.
Sure, yeah. Of course. And certainly, though, there is an audience, I think, for that there, and it's a shame that he's not on one of the major companies' TVs. You can watch him and do his thing, but just like you said, he's doing his thing otherwise. So if you're following the indie scene, you can certainly catch him in Chicago. Definitely check out his Twitter as well as his Facebook. You can just search Joel Gertner, and it'll certainly come up there. We do want to take just a little quick break though. And when we come back, we're going to wrap up the show. Thank you all for listening and tuning in this afternoon on the Do Your Job Wrestling Hour. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back here on Blog Talk Radio, the Do Your Job Wrestling Hour, the best in wrestling talk radio.
Listen up, wrestling fans. This is the hardcore chair-swinging freak, the ECW original Axl Rotten, and you're listening to the most extreme, most hardcore hour of professional wrestling news on the internet. That's the Do Your Job Wrestling Hour. Keep it extreme.
Welcome back to the Do Your Job Wrestling Hour right here on Blog Talk Radio. I am the ConKaiserdor. Alongside me, old school Avis Hathaway, and we thank you for tuning in to our show this afternoon as we had a wonderful and outstanding guest and probably one of our favorites, to date, Joel Gertner on the show. Truly a great guy, and certainly a great interview we've had today with him. And again, thank you for all your support. November has been a tremendous month here for us, probably one of our biggest months since our show's inception in late September of last year. So, we got some really big news as next week on Sunday, our normal time, 9 p.m., 10 p.m. Eastern Time, we're going to have a great show with Vito DiNucci working with the NWA Ring Warriors down in South Florida, one half of the New Heavenly Bodies, as well as former NWA multiple tag team champion. He's done work with WWE, so he's such a great person to have on, such a knowledgeable person of wrestling and stuff. So you don't want to miss that show. It is going to be an awesome show to tune into. And then December, our first show of December, which is looking here at the calendar. December, our first show is the 4th. We have WCW Triple Crown champion. All of you will probably remember him as Alex Wright, and that's who will be on the show. Alex Wright has his own wrestling school in Germany. That show will also be at a special time because of the time difference in Germany and here in the States. So we will be doing that show at 4 p.m. Eastern Time. So you don't want to miss that show. It's going to be awesome. We'll get into all kinds of good stuff with him. And after that, we're looking to run a show with kind of rescheduling Frightmare from Chikara. We're looking to do a Frightmare Before Christmas episode. So we're just ironing out the details of that. We're looking to do that show the following week, and then our last show of the year. We can't do a show without the one and only Kris Kringle, Santa Claus, on the show as he was last season. And, man, old school, you remember that show. What a tremendous show that was with old St. Nick.
Yes, it is. It is going to be a fun show with St. Nick. Everybody who's been naughty and nice needs to tune in, find out where they sit on the list. Have any questions, feel free to call into St. Nick, and if you want your Red Ryder BB gun, you can ask him directly. So that'll be a lot of fun. As the ConKaiserdor said, the next month or so of shows are just, they're action packed. We've had just great guests lined up every week. I really think that we've pretty much taken the bar to another level with some of the guests we've had. And like you said, next week is no exception. Vito DiNucci, NWA Ring Warriors, one half of the former NWA multiple-time tag team champions, the New Heavenly Bodies, and one half of the pretty much one of the inspirations to our show, Between the Ropes, which was a great wrestling talk show out of Orlando, Florida. It was also national online. So it'll be great, to speak with Vito about all things wrestling, local, independent, all the way up to the national level. He has worked with all the big companies as well. So that's definitely a show you don't want to miss. Yeah, we got a lot of great things down the pike.
Absolutely, and especially, the show with, we always encourage our listeners to call in. Certainly today, we had a limited amount of time, so we didn't want to, really encourage it too much today. However, usually we always want to encourage our listeners to call in. You can always call into the show, 714-694-4101. Jump into the chat room. We really encourage your questions. If you have anything you want us to discuss on the air or, anything at all, please let us know. That's really why we do this show, for the wrestling fans.
Absolutely. We try to keep the show as one of the most interactive shows out there, so you really have a chance to touch base with our guests, some of your favorite wrestlers, maybe somebody you hadn't heard from in a while, maybe somebody who's just on their way up right now. We try to mix it up, have some names from the past and names from the future, and, when possible, names from the present as well. So, this is your chance to get on the horn with some great people and kind of ask your questions and, have your voice be heard. So, please take advantage.
Absolutely. And also remember, when we have Santa Claus on the show, and that show above all, we encourage as many listeners as out there to tune in and call into that show because, you have the opportunity that evening to ask Santa Claus what you might be getting for Christmas.
It's true. How many people we're able to book Santa Claus right before Christmas. This is his busy time of the year. He's taking the time out just for us.
Absolutely. He's taking the time out for us. I mean, he's bringing the elves with him. He's bringing Rudolph, Prancer, Dancer, and...
Why wait in line at the mall? That's all I'll say. Why wait in line at the mall when you can call in?
Exactly, and sitting on Santa's lap is so passé and kind of creepy in a way. So, you might as well just tune in and listen to him, chuckle and be jolly and ho, ho, ho and all that other good stuff there. But don't forget to tune in next week with Vito DiNucci live in the Dear Job Wrestling Hour. You don't want to miss it. And also in the meantime, Google, Facebook, NWA Ring Warriors. They got their first show coming up. Great card. I mean, awesome wrestling. You don't want to miss it. One of our former guests, Tokyo Monster Kahagas, will be working that show, as well as some other guests we've had on in the past. But it's going to be an awesome show, so you don't want to miss that there. And thanks so much for tuning in. Big thanks again to Joel Gertner for coming on the show this afternoon. Old school, always a pleasure, bud. And we'll see you next week with Vito DiNucci right here on the Do Your Job Wrestling Hour. Good night, everybody.